In this session, we're going to talk about inheritance. Inheritance is one of the most important pillars of object-oriented programming. Basically, it's a mechanism that one class can inherit and the members of another class. By members, we mean the fields and the methods. Let's jump to an example and see what do we mean by inheritance and how we implement it in Scala. Let's say I have a class student, a very traditional classic example that has name and address. I also have graduate student and an undergrad student. So we have two types of students. So the class student is a superclass, and the class graduate student is a subclass, which is going to inherit from student. Is going to inherit name, address, and any other methods that this student class has. And we can also add a new field to the grad. The keyword that is used for inheritance in Scala is extends. Let's just look at an example and see how we implement that. So I have a class student, as we saw. This was an abstract class. It could be abstract, it could be not abstract, totally up to us. But in this example, since we're going to use the example we showed before, we're going to just reuse the student class and we define it as a student. So we're going to have a class graduate student, which is a child class. We want this class to inherit everything from students. We don't want to redefine every single method that we have, and we have different type of students class, right? So this is called reusability, and one of the advantage of inheritance in object-oriented programming is we can reuse and take advantage of a lot of code that is already written. So we extend student, so that's a keyword. It means this class is inheriting from student. If you remember, we had the method get attendance year. We are overriding this method. I'm going to explain this in the next chapter about the overriding, but basically we need to define this method. So how do you inherit from another class? What's the syntax in Scala? It's just extend. So let's just create the object and see if it works as you're expecting. I'm going to create a new object of graduate student, and I'm passing a name and address to this. And I'm asking to print the information. Let's look at the code and see how this information is printed. So I have a method named printinfo in a student class, which is going to print name, address, and I also want this to give me the attendance date. And this attendance date is going to get from this method, get attendance year. This is the abstract method. But we implemented in the graduate student class, which I'm going to use a calendar. So there's a Java util calendar API that already exists for us. I'm using this library and I'm calling .getInstance, and then I'm going to get the year from this, and I'm going to call toStrings to return me the exact year that we created this graduate student. So st equal to new, that's how we create an object. I'm calling the constructor to pass the parameters that I need for my student class, and I'm saying just print the information. Let's run this class and see if it works. So I have the name and the address, and I have that. No, sorry, hasn't run. So I have name, address, attendance date. It looks like the name and address is not implemented. Let's just go back and see why is that. So, oh, the reason is that here the name and address, it's inheriting from the name and address of the student. And if you notice, that's why the name and address is null, is because we are inheriting from the student here. So how do we fix that? Let's look at the next slide and see how we can pass the new name and address to this class. That's it for this session. Thank you.